South China Sea, 47 nautical miles southwest of the Spratly Islands, 3:18 a.m. No moon, visibility near zero. The kind of darkness that makes the sea and the sky the same thing. Luas Decatur, DDG-73, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, was conducting a routine freedom of navigation operation through international waters. 9,200 tons of warship. A crew of 281. Every sensor on the ship awake and watching. On the bridge, the watch officer was 3 hours into an uneventful transit. Calm seas. No contacts of concern. The kind of night you almost forget is happening in one of the most contested stretches of ocean on Earth. Then the Spire 1T radar painted something it didn't like. Not one contact, not two. Seven People's Liberation Army Navy surface contacts, bearing 035, closing from 38 nautical miles at 28 knots. A planned surface action group, destroyers, frigates, and a Type 055 cruiser, moving in coordinated formation directly toward the Decatur's track. They weren't on a parallel course. They weren't passing through. They were coming straight at her. The planned task group commander believed the math was in his favor. He had spent months watching American destroyers conduct these operations. Single ships, sometimes two. Never with carrier support close enough to matter. The window to make a point, to force a U.S. warship to turn, to blink, to deviate from its course in front of satellite imagery, was exactly this. Darkness, distance from Guam, and a 7-to-1 surface ratio. The plan wasn't to sink the Decatur. The plan was to surround her, broadcast the footage, show the region and Beijing's domestic audience that the United States flinches, that international waters are a negotiable concept when the right number of grey holes show up. It was a coercion operation dressed up as a navigation exercise. The plane commander calculated that the Decatur's captain would have two choices: deviate course and hand Beijing a propaganda win, or hold course and face an incident that the US couldn't easily explain away. He had made 4 catastrophic miscalculations. First, the Decatur wasn't alone in the way the plane commander assumed. 2 Virginia-class fast attack submarines, USS Minnesota and USS Missouri, had been operating in the area for 11 days. Both had been passively tracking the planned surface group since it left Yulin Naval Base. Every bearing change, every speed increase, all of it logged, time-stamped, and transmitted to 7th Fleet in real time. The planned ships thought they were hunting. They were, in fact, being hunted. Second, a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft had been orbiting at 24,000 feet, 90 miles north, for the last 4 hours. Its AN/APY-10 radar had catalogued every hole in the plane group. The Type 055's masthead, the frigates' spacing intervals, the gap in their formation that told an attentive analyst exactly what the group's commander was thinking. They were emitting like a stadium scoreboard. Third, USS Lake Champlain, CG-57, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser carrying the strike group's air defense umbrella, was 110 miles east, well within SM-6 range of every ship in the planned formation. The plane commander's intelligence put the cruiser in Yokosuka. It wasn't. It was already tracking. Fourth, the Decatur herself. The plane group was treating her like a legacy destroyer from a previous generation of American warpower. She wasn't. Her Spire 1D radar, her MiG-41 vertical launch system with 90 cells, her Phalanx close-in weapon system, her evolved Sea Sparrow batteries. This wasn't a ship you box in. This was a ship you don't let the crew know you're coming, because if they know you're coming, you've already lost the element of surprise you needed. And they knew. They'd known for 3 hours. Fifth, and this one the plan planner missed entirely, American destroyer captains are not selected for hesitation. They are selected for exactly the opposite. Restraint is not the same as reluctance. What happened in the next 44 minutes became the most documented maritime coercion failure in the history of the South China Sea. 7 warships, 1 destroyer, and a chain of decisions that, once started, could only end one way. What happens when a calculated political maneuver runs into a crew that wasn't planning to calculate anything? Hit subscribe now, because the engagement sequence is something you're not going to want to miss halfway through. The South China Sea Freedom of Navigation program had been running continuously since 2015. Not symbolic patrols, deliberate, documented transits through waters that Beijing claims but international law does not recognize as sovereign. The Decatur had done this before. 3 prior FONLPs in the preceding 14 months. Luis Decatur versus Payan wasn't a new story. What was new was the scale of the response. Chinese naval doctrine had shifted. The shift was visible to anyone paying attention. Fewer single-ship intercepts, more coordinated task group deployments. The goal was numerical presence, not tactical engagement. Show up with enough holes that the legal and diplomatic questions become secondary to the physical reality of being surrounded. Naval intelligence had been tracking this doctrinal shift for 8 months. 7th Fleet had wargamed the scenario. The Decatur's captain, Commander Daniel Carr, had read the assessment. He knew what a closing plan surface group at 28 knots in the dark looked like on a tactical display. He also knew what his ship could do about it. The crew went to general quarters at 3:19. Not because they were panicking, because that's what professionals do when 7 warships decide to close your position at speed, in the dark, with no radio contact initiated. You prepare, then you wait, then you decide. The tip of the plan formation was a Type 055 Renhai-class cruiser. Hull number 101, CNS Nanchang. 12,000 tons fully loaded, 180 meters long, 112-cell vertical launch system capable of firing Orjili 18 anti-ship missiles, HAQ-9B surface-to-air missiles, and CG-10 land attack cruise missiles simultaneously. Maximum speed 30 knots. Crew of approximately 300. Cost: approximately $900 million USD per hull. On paper, it's the most capable surface combatant China has ever built. Comparable in firepower density to a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, designed specifically to challenge American surface superiority in littoral waters. Flanking the Nanchang were 2 Type 052D Luoyang Ilai-class destroyers, 7,500 tons each, 64-cell VLS, HQ-9 SAM batteries, YJ-12 supersonic anti-ship missiles with a 400 kilometers range, each one a $600 million platform. Then 4 Type 054 at Jiangkai E frigates, 4,000 tons, Leje-83 anti-ship missiles, HQ-16 medium-range SAMs, capable, modern, and numerically significant. On paper, the plane commander had assembled a task group worth approximately $4.8 billion in surface combatants. On paper, this looked overwhelming. The Decatur was about to demonstrate the difference between looking overwhelming and being overwhelming. The Spy-1DV, phased array radar on the Decatur, had been tracking all 7 contacts since they were 38 miles out. By the time the crew went to general quarters, the fire control system had target solutions on every hull in the formation. Not tentative solutions, firing solutions. The MiG-41 vertical launch system carries 90 cells. The Decatur was loaded for this operating environment, a mix of SM-2 block, IIIB, extended-range surface-to-air missiles, SM-6 dual-role interceptors capable of engaging surface targets at over 130 nautical miles, and BGM-109 Tomahawk Block IV cruise missiles. The Tomahawk alone, 20 feet long, 3,000-pound warhead, 1,000 miles of range, is not a weapon you carry for self-defense. It's a weapon you carry because you live in a world where deterrence requires the other side to do the math. The Harpoon Block II anti-ship missile system, 4 canisters of 8 missiles each, was already in standby mode. Harpoon, 15 feet, 488 pounds of warhead, sea-skimming terminal approach, active radar homing. The planned formation's air search radar would pick it up approximately 4 seconds before impact. That's not a typo. The Decatur also carried 2 5-inch/62 caliber MiG-45 naval guns, each capable of 20 rounds per minute, accurate to 13 nautical miles. In a close-range engagement with ships trying to physically block the destroyer's course, those guns become relevant very quickly. 7 ships, 1 destroyer. The planned group brought a bigger fleet. The Decatur brought a bigger menu. Like showing up to a fistfight and discovering the other guy was a professional chef who specializes in bringing the right knife for every occasion. 319. General quarters sounded throughout Decatur. Combat Information Center fully manned. Captain Carr on the bridge. All weapon systems in standby. The Spili 1D was painting the planned formation at 31 nautical miles and closing. No radio contact from the planned group. Silence. That silence was deliberate. Initiating communication would acknowledge the legitimacy of the American presence. The planned doctrine was physical presence only, force the deviation without ever saying a word. 324. The P-8A Poseidon overhead began transmitting a direct feed to 7th Fleet via Link 16. Admiral Phil Davidson, watching from Yokosuka, had a real-time picture of the entire formation. He had also already spoken with USS Lake Champlain, 110 miles east. The cruiser's weapons were active. Her fire control team had solutions on the Type 055 and both destroyers. The plane commander didn't know any of this. He thought he was boxing in a single destroyer. He was actually walking into the overlap zone of a 3-ship kill web. 329. The planned formation split. This is where the geometry got serious. The 2 Type 052D destroyers peeled wide, 1 north, 1 south, beginning a classic encirclement approach. The 4 frigates closed the distance directly ahead. The Type 055 Nanchang remained at the center, approximately 18 nautical miles out, the command node for the entire operation. On the Decatur's tactical display, 7 red contacts were spreading around the ship's planned track, like a net drawing closed. "So I say to bridge, Captain, formation is executing an encirclement pattern. Closest contact bearing 010, range 14 miles, speed 28 knots. Captain Carr, understood. Maintain course and speed. Broadcast on bridge to bridge. International distress frequency. All stations. 331. The Decatur broadcast on Channel 16, the International Maritime Distress and Safety Channel. Unidentified planned surface formation. This is United States Navy warship on your present bearing. You are approaching in an unsafe and unprofessional manner. Alter course immediately. Silence. The frigates were at 11 miles now. The lead frigate's bow wave was visible on the surface search radar. At 28 knots, they had approximately 14 minutes before they were close enough to physically block the destroyer's course. 334. 7th Fleet came over the secure net. The conversation was brief. Decatur, 7th Fleet. You are authorized rules of engagement Bravo. Defensive posture only. Do not deviate from course without direct order. acknowledge. 7th Fleet, Decatur acknowledges. Row Bravo, maintaining course. 3:37. The lead frigate was at 7 miles. She was not slowing down. At 5 miles, a Chinese frigate attempting to cross the bow of a U.S. destroyer in the dark becomes a collision risk under international maritime law. CLLREG's Rule 16. The Decatur's navigator confirmed it aloud. The captain already knew. 3:39. The second Type 052D destroyer, the one that had swung south, completed its arc and was now closing from 220 degrees. Range 9 miles. The encirclement was nearly complete. Then the submarines made their presence known. Not weapons, not aggression. U.S. Minnesota, positioned 8 miles northeast of the formation, transmitted on the plan group's secure command frequency. Not a message, just a burst transmission, enough to tell any signals intelligence analyst and any plan flag officer listening that there was a Virginia-class attack submarine in their formation's baffles. The plan commander heard it. Every ship in his formation heard it. The lead frigate began to reduce speed. 3 knots, then 5, then 10. 3:41. The Type 055 Nanchang changed course. 6 degrees to port. Small, but enough. The frigates responded immediately, following their command ship's deviation. The encirclement maneuver, carefully choreographed, months in the planning, executed with genuine seamanship, began to unwind, not collapse. Unwind. Slowly, with practiced dignity, the plan formation began opening its geometry. They didn't run. They didn't scatter. They adjusted. But they adjusted. 3:44. The Decatur crossed through the center of what had been the plan formation's intended intercept point. Undeviated, unblocked, on the same heading, at the same speed that she had been holding for the last hour. Total time from general quarters to plan course change, 25 minutes. The Nanchang and her group came no closer than 6.2 nautical miles to the Decatur at their nearest point of approach. 6.2 miles. Close enough to read the whole number. Not close enough to matter. No weapons fired. No casualties. No collisions. The Decatur continued her freedom of navigation transit without deviation and completed the operation at 5:17, logging the full track for international maritime records. The P-8 Poseidon overhead had recorded the entire maneuver. Every course change, every speed adjustment, the encirclement attempt, and the withdrawal, time-stamped and geolocation tagged. The plan formation reversed course at 3:49 and returned toward Yulin Naval Base in a loose column. The Nanchang was last tracked making 22 knots southwest, in no particular hurry to get anywhere. U.S. Minnesota and Missouri shadowed the group for 6 hours, then returned to their patrol areas. The Decatur had 0 damage, 0 casualties, 0 course deviations. The crew secured from general quarters at 4:12, and the midwatch resumed their duties. For them, this was a Tuesday. Let's talk about what this operation cost the plan. The Type 055 Nanchang, $900 million. Deployed, fueled, crewed for an operation that achieved nothing. The 2 Type 052D destroyers, $600 million each, $1.2 billion combined. The 4 Type 054 frigates, approximately $350 million each, $1.4 billion combined. Total planned surface force deployed, $3.5 billion in warships. Total planned tactical objective achieved, 0. Total American deviation from planned course, 0 nautical miles. U.S. cost for the operation, approximately $1.8 million in fuel and operational overhead for the destroyer. The P-8 sortie ran around $400,000. the submarine operations costs, classified but not low. Call it $4 million on the American side. $3.5 billion in planned warships versus $4 million in American operational costs. For the privilege of discovering that a Virginia-class submarine was parked in their formation, a cruiser 110 miles away had solutions on their command ship, and a single American destroyer was not going to move. That's roughly the same economics as renting a stretch limousine to drive to a car wash and then finding out the car wash is closed, has always been closed, and a recording of the whole thing is already on its way to International Maritime Archives. Beijing watched the after-action report carefully. So did everyone else. The lesson the plan drew, or should have drawn, isn't about American stubbornness. It's about the geometry of networked warfare. The Nanchang's crew never knew the submarines were there. They never saw the Link 16 data flowing to 7th Fleet in real time. They never knew that the cruiser 110 miles east had firing solutions active before the first frigate changed course. From the planned formation's perspective, they were maneuvering against a single destroyer. From 7th Fleet's perspective, 7 Chinese warships had just spent 25 minutes inside an integrated kill web they couldn't see, couldn't map, and couldn't escape from faster than the decision-makers in their formation could process what was happening. Russia's Pacific Fleet observers noted this carefully. They recognized the architecture, not from this incident, but from the pattern. American surface action isn't about the ship you're looking at. It's about everything connected to the ship you're looking at that you can't see. The broader lesson is about coercion mechanics. The plan doctrine of numerical presence assumes that the other side's calculation is number of holes times hull capability equals decision. American doctrine assumes something different. The decision is already made before the formation appears on radar. What the formation is deciding is only the cost of their own participation. Asymmetric tactics, numerical encirclement, formation intimidation, gray zone coercion do not defeat networked technological superiority. They reveal themselves to it. The Decatur didn't win this engagement through firepower. She won it because every officer in the plan formation, from the Nanchang's captain down to the lead frigate's OOD, eventually did the math on what was actually in the water around them. Mathematics doesn't negotiate with formation size. Somewhere in Yulin, a plan flight officer wrote an after-action report. The kind of report that uses careful language to explain why a $3.5 billion task group failed to alter the course of a single American destroyer by a single nautical mile. There are only a few ways to write that report honestly. You can note that American electronic warfare and networked systems denied the formation the situational awareness it needed. You can note that the submarine presence changed the risk calculus irreversibly once it was detected. You can note that the American crew showed no indication of the hesitation the doctrine predicted. What the report cannot easily address is the simpler truth underneath all of it. You do not coerce a warship whose captain already decided not to be coerced. You do not surround a crew that is connected to assets you cannot count, cannot see, and cannot neutralize before they can act. The Decatur kept her course. For the crew of DDG-73, the sun rose at 6:11. The next watch bill rotation went up at 700, and the South China Sea looked the same as it always had. International waters, open to all, belonging to none. For the planned formation heading southwest, plenty of time in a 6-hour return transit to reconsider every assumption that had led to the preceding 44 minutes. Attempting to intimidate a networked American destroyer group in international waters is a little like trying to sneak up on someone who invited 3 friends, 2 of them invisible, and one of them is already holding the door open from inside. Technically possible to attempt. statistically inadvisable to complete. If this breakdown showed you something real about how modern naval deterrence actually works, not the ships, but the systems behind the ships, share it with someone who still thinks tonnage is the whole story. Like and subscribe, because the next video covers what happened when a different fleet made a different calculation in a different sea and ran into the same answer